What I love about cigars, especially Cuban cigars, is that they have an endless variety of taste and texture. So it's very similar to wine tasting, which I'm also interested in. I find both to be a physical and also an intellectual experience, because both require thinking and consideration and balancing of nuances, and that gives me pleasure.
Mm-hmm. 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 Come on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, for the beginners here, I think, I'd like to just get a little bit into, maybe just picking. Now we've picked our first cigar, about the lighting, the cutting, the smoking, just kind of like a walkthrough. I see people grab a cigar, beautiful cigar, and then just take a chunk out of it or try and cut it off with some, cheap scissors or something, and it just makes me cringe. So, for the people who don't know, maybe we can give them a little how-to on, just what kinds of cuts there are, and, something along those lines.
And that's another thing. There are a lot of people out there who've never had a cigar. They don't know how to smoke it. They don't want to look like they don't know. Cutting, lighting, and just smoking the cigar. I mean, those aren't things that you're born to know. Things you have to be shown. And a lot of guys pick up a cigar, like you said, they hack the head off of it, put the flame to it, and they're like, you get a lot of smoke, and the guy's like, "Oh, I don't like this. This isn't a good cigar." I see veterans, guys who've been smoking cigars for years, they still don't know how to cut the cigar. They don't know how to light it. The most important thing, whichever way you prepare a cigar, the important thing is that most of the cigar has to be intact. And the idea is to cut as little off the cigar as possible to be able to smoke it. Now there's some pieces of equipment out there that try to make it as easy as possible. One is what's known as the punch cut or the bullet cut. Because many years ago, some guy in the U.S. Found some empty 44 Magnum shells, cartridge shells, stuck a surgical steel ring blade into it, and the punch cut was born. And that thing was meant to make cutting as easy as possible, because the blade just goes into the head of the cigar and then takes out a divot. So anyone who's unsteady with their hands can use it with very little chance of ruining the cigar. And the important thing is that it keeps the outer wrap intact, so as you're smoking it, the whole thing doesn't fall apart. If you cut the cigar with a guillotine or a double blade, scissors, and you cut too far down the cigar, and you affect that nice, delicate outer wrap that keeps the wrapper in place, you cut too far down the cigar, and then as you're smoking, the whole cigar is just going to unravel in your mouth. So it's very important that you understand why to cut the cigar the way it's supposed to be cut. Some guys will just pop a hole in the middle of the cigar. That's an old way of doing it. You just take like a pike or like a match head, just poke a hole. Some of these ways, these little tricks, are good for certain size cigars. Like the punch cut isn't really meant to be used on big gauge cigars. Because the way you get the smoke in, because of the small opening, if it's a big cigar like a Churchill, double Corona, or even a Robusto, or now these big gauge monster cigars that are being manufactured, the nicotine and tar build up inside the ring, and as you're smoking, that builds up, and it could make the cigar bitter prematurely. So that's good common practice for a 42, 44. I wouldn't use on anything bigger than a 46 ring or a Corona Gorda. I've always favored the guillotine or the scissors, especially for bigger cigars, so you get more of that flavor coming down. I found that for bigger cigars, if you don't have a good scissor or guillotine to chop off the head, the old V-cut also known as a cat's eye cut. You don't see that as much in a pocket version or even a tabletop version as used to. It's like an old, very old style cut. But I tell customers you can replicate that with a little pocket knife. And it's just a matter of cutting a V shape right in the middle of the cigar. You're literally taking a slice out. And that allows you to maintain the whole assembly on the other wrap so the cigar doesn't fall apart on you. And it gives you more of an opening than a bullet cut. So you can get all the flavor without that premature bitterness that comes with the other stuff. As for lighting, lighting is very important. Everybody thinks they know how to light a cigar like everybody thinks they know how to smoke a cigar. That's not I've seen a lot of mistakes made. One of which is putting the cigar directly into the flame. The idea is to burn the entire surface of the cigar evenly. But at the same time, again, to maintain the look of the cigar, the aesthetics of the cigar. So what you do is, whether you're using a butane flame, match, cedar stick, some guys don't like to use Zippos. If that's all you have, with a Zippo, because of the fuel sits on the wick, let the wick burn for 2-3 seconds to get off that excess benzene smell. And again, just like any other flame, you always hold the flame just below the cigar, and as you're drawing in, you pull the flame up to the cigar. And the flame will rise up, and as you're doing that, you just slowly rotate the cigar, ensure a nice even burn. Every once in a while, it's not a bad thing to check the cigar and make sure it's burning properly. And then just keep going until you get a nice even light. And then from there, you just gently puff on it, get some flavor in. The important thing when smoking the cigar, never to be anxious about it. Try to relax, enjoy, and most important of all, don't inhale. You actually do not get any flavor from a cigar if you inhale it. You're going to get stoned. You're definitely getting an upset stomach. You're going to get a belly full of smoke, but you're not going to enjoy the cigar. Because the flavor of the cigar is in the smoke. It's not ingesting it like a cigarette. The smoke circles around the palate, and then your taste buds do the rest. And I know a lot of people read magazines about cigar flavors, blueberry, ink, leather, like wines now. It's all the same. Pencil lead, you name it. What it really comes down to when somebody talks about the flavor of a smoke in a cigar is what you can associate with. If you're new to cigars, but you've had a, let's say, a culinary background, you have a wine background, single malts, or maybe you're a chef, you've been exposed to a lot of different flavors, you're at a bit of an advantage because your palate is trained to pick up on the little nuances of flavor that come up with anything, whether it's tea or whiskey, bourbon. With a cigar, if you don't know, you're not going to pick it up. You might translate it as, or interpret the flavor as strong, heavy, smoky, unpleasant, and that's why it's important for somebody who's just starting out to start out with as best quality as they can afford, but appropriate for their level. If I start out with this Monte Cristo number 4, as mild a cigar it is to a connoisseur, to an experienced smoker, somebody who's never had a cigar before will find it strong, harsh, heavy, maybe unpleasant, and they're going to miss the actual flavors that are contained in this one. So it's important to train the palate, expose yourself to milder cigars, but good quality cigars that do contain some flavor. Your palate is trained to pick up on something that might be spicy or creamy, like pretty base flavors that we all know. And then from there, you get something that might be a little bit more complex, stronger flavors, something that might have, there's so many different blends now, so many manufacturers, they're using tobaccos from everywhere, and they're using them in ways that we never thought possible. Even there's still the Cubans, cigars, they make a wide range of qualities and blends, and the options are enormous. And then you have manufacturers from Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican, using all kinds of different blends. I mean, the options for the beginner as for the more experienced smoker are literally endless. I mean, there is something out there for everyone. It's a matter of finding the right way.
Finding the right tobacconist to help you out with that decision, definitely. And I think that this is definitely the place to do it, guys. Giuseppe, you're a Thomas Hines tobacconist. Come get your cigars. Thanks, Giuseppe.